Welcome to Busted Speakers. I'm Ed.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Cam.
And today we're going to be reviewing the, 12th album by indie rock band Car Seat Headrest, although having said that, they've taken kind of a change of direction on this album. No pun intended. This is called Making a Door Less Open, and it's the fourth album by the band as a full unit. Beforehand, Will Toledo, the frontman of the band, really made a name for himself by making, I guess you'd say, bedroom indie rock music. And I think one of the reasons that I really love this band is because of the emotional resonance of his songwriting, which managed to shine through the incredibly low quality and lo-fi recordings that he made a name for himself with. So this album is definitely a big change of pace for the group. So it's going to be an interesting one to talk about, especially considering Cam has never heard a Car Seat Headrest album before, and Alex only has kind of a passing familiarity with the band, if that's fair to say.
Yeah, I mean, I know them from both eras, as when Car Seat Headrest was just a name for, like, Will Toledo as a solo bedroom performer, and I'm probably more aware with the, albums when they were a band unit, like, which would be more called indie rock rather than lo-fi indie, but yeah, definitely more of a passing familiarity, especially compared to you.
Yeah, the band signed to Matador Records, I believe, in 2015, and then really broke out with their album Teens of Denial, which is kind of considered a modern classic. But then you also have albums like Twin Fantasy, which was remade in 2018. That was their previous album before this one, and that's an album that has a great deal of acclaim and discourse around it. This album, not so much on the acclaim side of things, but definitely on the discourse side of things. So, yeah. What did you guys think of this record?
Yeah, so it's probably telling that this is actually the one that I've actually listened to the most from the band. I'm not doing something right there. Like, they've definitely got more worthwhile albums. I know that. I prefer Teens of Denial from this one, like, even though I've heard that a little bit less than this. This album has problems. It's got some really bad songs. It also has a couple of really great songs as well. Really weird scattershot, like, sequencing. Some really weird decisions on instrumentation and lyrical choices here and there. It has grown on me with more listens, though. Like, on first listen, I was not digging it that much. Some songs have kind of reversed in my opinions, and I like them a bit more. Some I've lessened on, but overall, it ain't great, but it is, a decent album. I can say that. I think it's decent.
So for me, I've been reluctant to check out Car Seat Headrest ever since I heard about them, probably back when they re-recorded Names.
Twin Fantasy.
Thank you. Probably when they recorded Twin Fantasy, because that was kind of a big deal, the band coming up from nowhere, all of a sudden deciding to re-record and re-release one of their biggest indie hits. But, I just never checked them out because bedroom indie is one of those genres that's always really hit or miss for me, and I just figured I'd give them a pass until, there's just something I couldn't possibly ignore, like, say, an album released in the middle of our quarantines that...
Or an album you're forced to listen to for a podcast.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. So I came into this having absolutely no expectations. After my first listen, I was like, I'm sure I can guess what it is that fans don't like about this. But as an outsider looking in, all I hear is, you're gonna jump down my throat for this maybe, but all I hear is a pretty good to maybe even really good indie rock album.
I'm not going to jump down your throat. All power to you for enjoying it. I really dislike this album, I'm going to be honest. I think this is their worst album by quite some distance, and that's discounting the first couple of albums, given that they were very much super unprofessional Audacity experiments, essentially, and aren't really all that worthwhile in terms of the band's catalogue. Yeah, where to even begin, I guess. I have a lot to say, and simultaneously not much of a care to really spend a whole lot of time talking about this album at all, really. Mainly because it upsets me a little bit.
It was a disappointment then, Ed.
Yeah, something I really, really want to stress on this review, because I know perhaps some people are going to listen to this and assume that I dislike this album just because of how different it is from the previous records, and that's not the case at all. I actually thought this approach is what they needed to do after Twin Fantasy 2018. Because the thing about Car Seat Headrest is that they have, in the past, had these extremely narratively deep albums and thematically deep albums, and these albums that have so much lyrical weight to them and so much to explore, and I can't help but feel like doing that repeatedly wasn't really the way to go this time around. As much as I love albums like Twin Fantasy and the remake as well, like I love both of those albums equally for different reasons, which is not a popular opinion from what I can tell. Some people seem to strongly prefer the remake, some people seem to strongly prefer the original. But as for this album, on Bandcamp there's a pretty good pitch for the album, essentially, of the approach that the band took. And that was to make something that's different from the previous records and give each individual song its own unique identity and not have them really linked together in any kind of thematic way. I have no issue with that, you know? Like, I think Car Seat Headrest have had plenty of songs that can be enjoyed as much in isolation as they can in the full context of a record. So having more of a pop sensibility in trying to craft songs that have their own unique special energy is a really good approach for them, because, you know, I don't just love them for the reasons I mentioned earlier, I just think they write really good songs as well. But the problem is, I think they took a bit of a left turn a little too far and fell off the cliff. Again, no pun intended there. But yeah, like I say, I really thought they needed to have a change of direction, by all means. But the way this album comes together, it just feels so incohesive, and there's a lot of really jarring musical decisions on here. The influence from the band's drummer, Andrew Katz, who has a side project called One Trait Danger, is very apparent if you have heard those One Trait Danger albums, which are essentially comedy albums, comedy rap albums, with a lot of big, booming, ridiculous EDM production.
Nice.
Most songs on here don't quite go that far, but there is one song that we are going to talk about when we go through tracks that kind of does, and I'm sure you guys can guess which song I'm talking about.
I think so.
But yeah, really the way I can sum this up is that I just thought nothing really shined through for me for the vast majority of the track list. I think it's really incohesive, it's really jumbled. The album doesn't really say anything to me in terms of like emotional resonance, anything like that, which is really jarring considering what compared to their previous work. But I guess the thing I want to stress most is that I did go into this not wanting to compare it to the previous albums, but having listened to it maybe 5 or 6 times, I just can't help but think, man, I wish I was listening to their previous work, because I really dislike this album, honestly. But yeah, I guess we're going to go through track by track. The opener is called Weightlifters, and yeah, what did you guys think of that song?
Okay, so the first time I listened to this, I was not enjoying it, because this has about a minute and a half ear-piercingly annoying reverberating synth noise. Like, what is that? Like, what is at the start of this song? Do you guys know?
I guess it's kind of like it's a whiny, airy synth that I guess is pitch shifted. There's like some automated pitch shifting going on, but yeah, that is persistent for the whole song.
Yeah, it never goes away, it never dissipates. However, I kind of see what they're going for here, even though it's kind of annoying and isn't exactly the type of thing you'd want to start an album with. I think they were going for sort of an epic extended intro, like before going into the song proper. You know, like Where the Streets Have No Names by U2. That's what I think they were going for, except it's kind of annoying. Ear piercing, it's just that until Will starts singing with some drum and guitar noises put in. However, the song itself was actually the one that grew on me the most. I actually quite like this song. I'm going to be honest, like, it's grown on me. Even though the synth sound persists through the whole song, it's kind of a ad hoc, off-kilter kind of tune. I think it's kind of good. Definitely not one of the best on here, but I kind of dig it after the intro.
Cam?
I actually thought this song was a really good opener, and that kind of surprised me because I think I've established myself as being the one of us with the lowest tolerance for really weird sustained synthesizer noises. But for some reason, the buzzing whistle, whatever you want to call it, at the beginning, or that plays all through this song, didn't really bother me that much. I'm just gonna skip ahead a little bit, like not skipping around tracks, just skip ahead in my thoughts. Like, I honestly don't think that there's a bad song in these first four, and I'll have fun trying to defend that, I guess.
Yep. It's Will who's on synthesizer, right?
I believe so, yeah.
It's very hit or miss. Some songs it's used really well, some it's really not well, like on this one. Even though I think the song's overall kind of good, I just think this is kind of a bad usage, Cam.
I mean, yeah, that's fair. I'm not gonna argue with anybody who says it's not, but it didn't bother me the way like I expected it to when it started.
Fair enough.
And then along with that, I actually do think that there are some themes that kind of hold this album together. Like, maybe I'm like reading too far into this because I feel like I bring this up a lot, but I just got a very strong sense of angst from this album, and like there's some stuff that like I'm sure I could maybe try to do a full-on analysis of. Like, the song has the line your body can change your mind in the chorus, and then it's like bookending the album with the song Famous that says change your mind, did you change your mind, all through it.
Fair.
So I do feel that there is something here, and this track introduces that idea pretty well, in my opinion.
Well, this song also says thoughts can change your body. It's almost like he's talking about you need self-motivation to self-improve yourself and start lifting weights. Yeah. Again, maybe I'm reading too much into that, but I feel like that's as much of a lyrical depth as this song goes.
Or it could even be that like having a positive self-image will change the way you perceive your body, so like getting over I don't think he's ever gone on record talking about anything like this, but there is something you could read into about it, like I'm having a more positive self-image. And
yeah, I just wish it didn't have that fucking synth sound in it though.
Yeah, honestly, I think this song, I agree with Alex that this was like trying to have this big atmospheric opening, but I really feel like this song fails to establish much in the way of atmosphere or identity. When I ended up actually opening up the Genius page and looking into the lyrics for this one, I can appreciate what is being sung about here. And I think there are themes on the album, don't get me wrong. I mean, angst is kind of a general one for Car Seat Headrest, so it's not surprising to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the song definitely links in with the fact that they decided to take such a different approach on this album, I think, because it kind of reflects him wanting to change himself in light of the emotional weight of everything he's done before. I mean, we didn't mention this, but Will Toledo is now donning this gas mask because he essentially wants to remove his personal identity from the music in some fashion.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. I saw that on the Spotify artist page. I was like, what's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, if you know anything about Car Seat Headrest, you'll know that they have kind of a sort of problematic fan base. I feel like a lot of people, because albums like Twin Fantasy and Monomania are so personal and so intimate and so I'm trying to think of the right word.
Like relatable?
I guess relatable. A lot of people seem to feel kind of entitled to Will's personal life, which, obviously shouldn't be the case with any artist. They're artists, they're putting their work out there to be interpreted by the audience, not to be taken as an invitation to pry. But yeah, when I see people talk about Car Seat Headrest a lot, I see them kind of acting like they know Will and that they can, have an opinion of him that relates to who he is as a person rather than just an opinion on the music. So I can see why he wants to remove that sense of personal identity, but I think this song is kind of about that thing weighing him down, essentially, and not allowing him to change himself. So in that sense, it is a good opening statement for the album, but yeah, I think this is an incredibly average song. It has grown on me like it did with Alex, but I still think it's definitely the weakest start to a Car Seat Headrest album since his earliest Bandcamp work. I appreciate the attempt at having the album introduce itself in a more subtle and reserved manner than the likes of My Boy from Twin Fantasy, Fill in the Blank from Teens of Denial. But to me, that contrast didn't really pay off in any kind of interesting way. That persistent pitch shifting synth that runs through the whole track really clashes with the grooves that come in midway through. And structure-wise, the song takes forever to get started. And by the time you're at the chorus, it's just really underwhelming. Like, I like the lyrics in the chorus, but it's not catchy in the slightest to me. It just doesn't really grab a hold of me like an opening track should. Like I said, lyrically, I found some sentiments to appreciate here, but man, the lyrics themselves, I don't really find them memorable at all, which right off the bat was a huge red flag for this album for me, because I've found Toledo to be such a compelling lyricist on pretty much all of his previous work with the full band, and a great deal of his earlier material too. So yeah, really disappointing opening track. Definitely not one of the worst songs here. Like, it is an okay song. Yeah, I wasn't feeling it, guys.
Fair. Okay, then we go on to what was the first single, right, Ed?
Yeah, that's right.
Right, Can't Cool Me Down. Now, I did listen to actually all of the singles in the run-up to this, which is not something I normally do. Like, I didn't do that with Rina Sawayama or almost anyone. For some reason, I did it with this album because, you know, Ed's a fan of the band and he was sending me them, and the singles up to a certain point were pretty cool, right, Ed?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Can't Cool Me Down did not grab me too much on first listen, other than me thinking, yeah, it's a pretty cool song. But little did I know, it's a fucking cool song, by the way. I love this song. I don't know if it's my favourite on the album, but it's definitely one of them, and it's the song recently that has been the most stuck in my head, the most... one of my favourite songs of the year. I love it. I don't know if this is an over-enthusiastic reaction, but I love the way like the vocals swell up and rise and then go down during the choruses, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. I really like that too.
it's not just Will on the song vocally, it's actually is it bass player, Ethan?
The guitarist.
Guitarist, Ethan, who has a song later we'll get to, but he has a falsetto backing vocal sort of thing, and their voices actually meld together really well. Basically, I love this song, and it's definitely one of the reasons why I've been re-listening to it a lot, because it's track 2, and, you know, it's just really good, in my opinion. It's actually one of my favourite songs from the band, which is probably not a overarching popular opinion with fans, but, you know, I really dig it.
Yeah, I really like this song too. When it first released, there was definitely a bit of backlash because they debuted this song live, and the live version is a lot more akin to their older material.
Oh, gag me.
The single version is, you know, a lot more electronic than what we heard live.
Yeah, this is like indie tronica. I guess the whole album could be called that, or definitely more electronic infused compared to older Car Seat Headrest.
Definitely. But yeah, this song's really good. The only real problem I have with it is its structure. I feel like the song builds up in kind of a weird way, with it beginning with the chorus, like a more mellow version of the chorus. I wasn't really feeling that. I would have liked more build-up, honestly.
That makes it kind of interesting to me. Like, it's haphazard. It's definitely not like made up on the spot, but it definitely feels like it's just going from section to section very oddly. I find that quite cool, though. Yeah, I don't know. And you know, the last minute as well, got some cool guitar and synth interplay there.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely a song that I like a lot.
Yeah, I mean, they're minor structural problems to me, but, you know, I just figured that'd be worth pointing out because it's the only thing I really don't like about this song.
Fair enough.
Lyrically, vocally, the vocal melodies are really good. I like Will's reserved singing on here. I really like the chorus. I like the synths on this track. It's just a pretty damn good track, really solid. And
Does it have some xylophone as well during the first verse?
I believe so, or some kind of plunky noise. Sometimes it's hard to say what aspects of this album are electronic and which ones aren't, but yeah.
I can't really disagree with you guys there. This is definitely one of the better songs on the album. If anything, I kind of wish it was a little bit catchier because like it's got that great like MGMT-ish synth riff toward the end that I kind of wish was is it just toward the end or am I misremembering it?
I'll be honest, I don't think this song could be any catchier for me, but then again, I've gushed over this song enough. Yeah, but I get what you mean there, Cam. Like, it could have more of that you were talking about.
Yeah, but then it's also, like, I can also see the merit in leaving it off toward the end, so it's like a reward for listening through the rest of it.
You could say maybe the chorus is a little bit played out, but there's definitely worse examples of that on the album, so...
Yeah, I think maybe it's repeated one too many times, I will say that. And I also think this song probably could have benefited from being a bit shorter.
Yeah, I'll agree there.
Yeah, probably. But these are minor complaints compared to some other things we'll get to.
Should we go on to the next track?
Yeah, so track 3 is Deadline's Hostiles. What did you think of this one, Cam?
This one's a pretty strong contender for my favorite, I think, and maybe it's just because it's the most straightforward indie rockish so far.
I have that written in my notes as well. That's pretty surreal.
Yeah, I'm kind of a filthy plebe when it comes to this kind of thing, but I like nice bit of guitar rock. What can I say?
That's actually a really good sign because given that you like this album so much, Cam, I thought maybe, because it's so different from their previous work for the most part, I thought maybe their previous work might not necessarily be for you, not to assume anything about your taste, but I think this is the song that is closest to their older material, so maybe that's a good sign for if you want to go and check out their previous work.
Well, actually, yesterday I did listen to the original Twin Fantasy, Melomania, and about half of Teens of Denial.
Oh.
Yeah, so the first two of those were definitely the more hit than miss, but still the kind of bedroom indie stuff that I tend to find hit or miss. But yeah, Teens of Denial was all right. And I mean, I didn't dislike any of them. It's just I need to sit down and pay more attention to them.
Yeah,
I think you'd really like Teens of Denial. That's like full on indie rock at that point, I guess.
I really like this song as well. I think it's a nice little slice of traditional indie rock that breaks up the track list a bit and is, like I say, a lot closer to their older work. Not to say that automatically makes it good, but, it's a far cry from their best songs in this style, I'd say, but it does have one of the catchiest choruses on here by quite some distance. And
yeah,
I think a good amount of emotion does come through.
Yeah, there's also some, shouted vocals during the verses, which... are quite refreshingly visceral, I'd say.
Yeah. I definitely miss that aspect of Will's vocals on this album a hell of a lot, I must say.
Yeah.
Basically, as a full unit, the band are just doing what they do best here, and it's not surprising that the one track without any gimmicks or serious left turns ended up being one of the only keepers for me here. As much as I wish that wasn't the case, I wish I could love the songs that are so different on here.
Yeah, this is just a really solid, straight-ahead, good indie rock song to me. Can't disagree with you guys. I've said to Ed before that Will's vocals sometimes remind me of Julian Casablancas from The Strokes, and as I listen more and more, they've definitely got differences as well, but this song's probably the most similar vocally to him out of the album that remains so.
Yeah, it's not an uncommon comparison.
Yeah, but yeah, that's a solid song.
Then we have Hollywood.
Okay,
yeah.
I'm just gonna lean back and let you guys ride this one out.
Well, but you said you defend the first four, there's nothing bad in the first four songs, Cap.
Yeah, my...
well, nothing...
To quote Car Seat Headrest, my ears definitely perked up when you said that, because I'm excited to see how you explain how you like this song, but...
Yeah, defend it.
Again, this is outsider looking in, having no attachment to the previous material. Just to me, this just feels like it's a righteous anger song about. Maybe it's not so righteous. I'm gonna be a little more self-righteous in some places, just about the shallowness of modern life and the entertainment industry, which obviously is nothing new. But I guess I just didn't really expect lo-fi indie songwriter to branch out into that subject matter. And it's just like, I think the music is aggressive enough to, match the attitude in the song. Yeah, I mean, that's just about it. Like, there's something that listening to it reminds me of, like, some other band's transition from one thing to another. I can't put a finger on it, but it does seem familiar to a degree.
Yeah,
Not the strongest defense, I know, but, like, yeah.
I gotta say, this song is very vehemently just despised by a lot of Car Seat Headrest fans.
Yeah,
I can see that.
And I gotta say, I don't hate this song. Like, I don't think it's as bad as people are making it out to be. There's definitely things to like here. I really like the second half of the riff in the chorus, for example. It feels like it's reversed in a weird way and is really catchy sounding and cool. The thing that really holds this song back for me, beyond, I think, being quite shallow lyrically, especially when you compare it to his older work, it just feels like this weird takedown of like LA culture that just really doesn't go into any kind of depth at all and just comes off as really basic to me. Yeah, what really kills it for me is the drummer Andrew Katz has these just scream rap vocals on it. They just don't sound good to me. I just don't think he's a good singer. Like, I don't mind this sort of thing so much on a One Trait Danger album where it's consciously trying to be funny, because I do find this song kind of funny, and I don't know if that was the intention or not. The fact that I can't even tell is probably a testament to just how confusing it is, how badly it gets itself across. But yeah, I really don't dig this song. I think the lyrics are pretty damn bad. And the first half of that riff, man, I've seen a lot of people jokingly say it sounds like it belongs in a car advert. And I can't imagine it for sure. It's not a terrible riff, but it's also painfully generic, especially for Car Seat Headrest.
Yeah, I'm not digging that "come see my movie" kind of groovy part from Andrew there. The Kinks did that back in '68 with Groovy Movies, which is a deluxe edition track off of Village Green Preservation Society. Nothing new there. Anyway, yeah, I don't like this song. It's kind of ugly sounding. It's probably purposely done to mirror their disgust of Hollywood in general. But in turn, that doesn't make it very good to me. Like Ed said, Andrew's guttural vocals on this are really bad. Is this what One Trait Danger sounds like a lot of the time?
I mean, kind of. The vocals on the One Trait Danger album aren't screamed. They're kind of rapped in a normal tone of voice, but the thing about One Trait Danger songs is that they're usually so overblown and ridiculous that he gets away with being kind of ridiculous in terms of the vocal performance.
Yeah.
But here, it just sounds so garish to me. And that's a word I'd use to describe like a lot of aspects of this album. There's even songs here that I think are pretty decent that have just elements of them that I find really obnoxious. So it's kind of a letdown in that regard.
Yeah, bad song for me. Yeah, we know how trashy and evil and corrupt Hollywood execs are. I don't think this is anything new, or it's not a revelation.
Yeah, and the lifestyle as well is trying to be picked apart in some way, and it just doesn't work for me.
I mean, I kind of get the sentiment. I'm glad they're on this side of the opinion of it, but as a song, it doesn't work for me.
Yeah, but all power to you, Cam, for enjoying it. I'm glad someone does.
Well, thank you.
I hope that didn't come across as sarky or anything, because I am being genuine here.
No, I mean, like, I'm surprised that there's so much variety with the three of us between what we like and don't like about everything.
It's definitely a good thing. Like, I'd rather have that than us all just nodding our heads and agreeing with each other constantly.
Which does happen quite a bit.
Yeah, bad song, in my opinion. Really bad song. The first bad song on the album, because I just thought Weightlifters was okay. But, you know, I like tracks 2 and 3, so it's not a terrible start to the record. But where things really start to fall apart for me is on track 5, Hymn Remix. I think I should note just now that there's kind of an interesting feature of this album, which is that the digital version wasn't actually finished until 3 or 4 weeks before release, and they'd already had the vinyl and CD ready by that point. So the vinyl and CD track lists are actually pretty different, and the songs themselves, like Hollywood on the vinyl, for example, Andrew's vocals are just not on it for the most part, which is very strange.
Well, that would make it more manageable for me.
Yeah, but having said that, listening to that song without those vocals, it feels like it's missing something. I don't think it's missing awful scream rap vocals, but it's missing something for sure. I think a lot of songs on here, though, even on the digital finalized version of the album, which is the version you should listen to because it's more developed and I think has better sequencing than the other versions, although I do have a huge problem with the sequencing on this album, which I'll probably talk about when we conclude. But anyway, here we have a remix of the track Hymn. On the physical versions, we just have the regular Hymn track, which is actually pretty different. I appreciate this track in a way, as it feels like the band going all in on the kind of EDM indie rock fusion that the album was pitched as. But otherwise, to me, it's a pretty useless non-song that doesn't really get me moving despite its dance beats. The way Will's vocals are chopped up and stretched out on here also sounds a little garish. And the vinyl version is more of an atmospheric interlude that sounds okay. It's not beat-driven like what we have here, and it fares a lot better, but, it's not ideal having a better version of a song only available on the vinyl. But yeah, there's not much to like here anyway. There's not much of substance, no lyrics to dig into, really.
No, you get the non-remixed version of Him if you buy the album on Bandcamp, though.
Oh, okay, I didn't realise that. Is it a bonus track? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess you can do that, but for the version of the album that we were delivered, the definitive version of the album on digital, this is the track that they chose to put in here, and it's just kind of okay. It has a driving beat, and there's not much to it, really. I don't have much else to say about it.
Yeah, I don't mind it in album context so much, because it kind of just blasts by, but it's definitely not a song I'd listen to on its own. I generally don't like weird, glitchy, remixed vocals as heard here, and I actually thought the original song was kind of boring, so it does add some excitement to the original, but I don't think it's that good. Although there's some cool organ playing on here. It's almost like some 70s prog stuff happening out of nowhere. That little musical motif was kind of cool, but otherwise it kind of just whizzes by without much notice from me.
What's your take on this one, Cam?
Yeah, I don't like this song at all. This is definitely the kind of digitally processed sounds that rubs me entirely the wrong way. But for what it's worth, I do kind of enjoy the back half of this album the back half of this song once it's done with that obnoxious vocal manipulation.
When it gets into the organ and keyboard parts.
More like when it gets into the guitar riffing.
Okay.
Even then, they still bring back the heavily distorted vocals during the distortion or during the guitar part. It doesn't totally recover. And I haven't heard the vinyl version. I actually didn't even know about the multiple versions of the album until about 10 minutes before we started recording.
Fair enough.
Yeah. While we're on the subject of this driven beat, I gotta say, a great deal of the drum compression across this whole album I just have a big problem with it a lot of the time. It sounds very much like the drums on a One Trait Danger album, except it works on that because they're trying to be really overblown and ridiculous. The way the drums are compressed on here, just a lot of the time, brings these moments where the album just feels really stiff and lifeless in terms of its grooves for me. And I think they're mixed a little too high on certain tracks as well. But yeah.
Which is interesting, as it was Andrew who mostly mixed this album.
Yeah.
Maybe subconsciously doing it, but who knows?
Yeah. And speaking of which, there is an aspect that I do kind of like about this album that's present on a few songs, such as the next one, Martin, which we'll talk about in a sec, which is fusing digital drums with physical acoustic drums, and for example on Can't Cool Me Down, it shifts between the two in a really interesting way, and I wish the experimentation on this album that's definitely present paid off in ways like that much more than it does for me. But yeah, we have Martin, track 6. This song I'm really torn on because I think it's a really lovely song, but what the hell is going on with the structure of this track? It's good grief. Like, we only get to hear the chorus once, and it's a pretty brief chorus. And it's a good chorus, but we only get to hear it once.
And the chorus is very good. It's, the just when I think I'm gone, done. I wish it happened again at least once,
Yeah,
but...
I think songs with pop sensibilities like this one should keep listeners wanting more, don't get me wrong, so that they'll feel compelled to revisit the songs over and over. But here I just keep having the same thought when I do listen to it, which is, why is it structured like this? In terms of instrumentation, it's pretty successfully executed, and I really dig the horns on the outro.
Yeah.
But again, as I've mentioned with a bunch of songs here, it just doesn't do much for me lyrically, despite Will's vocal delivery being quite a bit sweeter here than on most of the other songs. But yeah,
it's almost like a little indie folk pop tune to me.
Yeah, I really like the sound of this song, and I like the instrumentation and everything. But again, I just wish it was longer, if anything.
Also, am I missing something? But why is the song called Martin when he keeps saying Justin?
I have no idea. I don't know if the song's meant to be from someone called Martin's perspective or something like that.
I'm looking up the Genius annotations right now, as I do.
Yep.
And apparently, the name Justin used in the song is a reference to Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim. And I think Martin is also a character, or at least in one or both of the movies. Like, all Genius says is, Will use the characters' names, Martin and Justin, as a starting point for the song to framework the emotional context.
I'm not sure why I didn't catch that, because I absolutely adore The Secret of Nim. It's one of my favorite movies. I guess they're quite common names, so that's why I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
I'll have to think about that next time I hear it and see if I can catch any other lyrical themes there.
And it only happens once, but I guess if we're talking favourite moments on the album, I like the harmonized vocal part just before the chorus.
Yeah, I guess.
And I mean the chorus. There's only one chorus. But yeah.
That's true. Yeah, I guess that's where the doo-wop soul influence that Will mentioned on the Bandcamp description for this album comes through.
That's the only one instance of anything that could be remotely called doo-wop on the album for me. But it's a cool little moment.
Yeah. Thoughts on this song, Cam?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with you guys. I really love the sound and instrumentation of it. This one struck me as the most like a classic 90s indie rock song. Like, maybe not necessarily, something like what Matador would have been releasing back in those days, but just a nice throwback to, a kind of sound that we don't really get too much more. Where I disagree is I actually didn't even notice or mind that there was only one chorus. And... like, I don't know, like, I think I just love everything else about it so much that it didn't just faze me that you only hear it once.
It didn't leave you wanting more.
Well, I mean, it does, but I mean, any good pop song should do that.
Well, yeah, true.
That's true, but I don't know, man, like, while I like what I'm hearing here for the whole song, yeah. I just can't help but have a problem with how it's structured.
Yeah, and I mean, with, like, as frustrated as you seem to be with the album so far, I can totally understand, feeling disappointed when you get something great that you don't get enough of.
That's true. Yeah, maybe if this was surrounded by material that I like just as much, I wouldn't mind it as much, because this song does make me want to revisit it, but I just think for slightly the wrong reasons. Essentially, the whole second half of the track is an outro, basically, and it's a good outro. But it just makes the song feel kind of insubstantial to me in a way. And also, even though I like this song, I don't think it really fits on the album much at all. And especially following up the hymn remix, it's just a weird one. Like, I have major problems with the sequencing on this album. I think it's possible to have such a variety of tracks and have them flow together in an interesting way, or have the contrast between them actually benefit the variety of tracks. I just think this album is sequenced pretty horribly. It certainly feels intentional that nothing really flows into anything else here, but what with Will wanting each song to feel detached from the rest and have its own special energy, but the sense of variety doesn't really help the flow of the track list for me.
Yeah, I think if you're going to have scattershot sequencing of different styles, you definitely need to at least have consistency and quality. as the main thing to latch onto, which this album does not really have.
It just wasn't all that well executed, and I think that has a lot to do with how the band doesn't project much confidence in their new approach, given that they resort outright to their old ways and reiterate in a sort of watered-down fashion a lot of song ideas from their older material. There's a track later on, There Must Be More Than Blood, which, spoilers, probably the best song here for me. But that song is actually quite similar to a song from How to Leave Town, to the point where I think it's actually kind of like a conscious remake of that song. But, I don't mind that so much because it is different enough from the original. But yeah, I feel like the fact that the moments that work best for me here are the ones that are more akin to their older material is quite telling. But yeah, then we have track 7, Deadline's Thoughtful. I don't know why there's 2 tracks called Deadlines on here. There is one vocal sample that is repeated across both tracks, but otherwise they're pretty different songs. Yeah, I think this song is really bad. I'm just going to say it now. This is where the EDM influence on the album comes through a whole ton, but it does very little to distinguish itself from that label because the synths on here sound so stock to me. They just sounds so generic, and the sidechain drum compression is just horrible to listen to, honestly.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's much of a tune here either. There's very little to latch on to in terms of lyrics or melodies for me.
The first time I listened to this, I did think it was okay, but this is the one that has grown off me every listen. It's a slog, isn't it? Almost like 6 minutes long.
Yeah, it's one of the longest songs here, and there's very little to justify that for me.
And the last 2 minutes of the song is like an ending coda of sort of no reflection or oh compassion. Kind of got on my nerves for going on too long. It might have been okay, like a minute shorter. But then you have Andrew's funny interjections of going like shut up or whatever. Like, no thanks. I really don't need them. But yeah, questionable synth work opening this one up. Kind of gets cool when some electric guitar gets added in, but that's just because I think generally Ethan is really good on guitar, so I think that's just across the board of the whole album.
Oh yeah, he's an excellent guitarist. I think whenever you hear his guitar work on this album, there's not much to complain about, specifically in terms of that, even if everything else going on around it doesn't work so much for me.
I would say the song isn't like complete trash compared to Hollywood for me.
I think it's worse, honestly. I honestly think this song is worse.
Maybe, but yeah, it is too long. Just not much for me here. I mean, solid guitar playing. Will does a decent performance. I just think synth work brings it down, and it's too long for me.
I mean, I don't really know how much I can contribute. I like the synths on this one for the most part, but I do agree that it is definitely too long. But I think most of that comes from the intro, not so much the outro.
Could probably be both, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. Again, I wouldn't argue with too much on this. Mostly because I don't know what I'm talking about. There's not much to it lyrically. I did get kind of a chuckle out of the interjections at the end, and that saved it for me. Whether or not that's, the inclusion of them at all is a good thing, I'm willing to hear arguments one way or the other.
Yeah, I don't mind that aspect so much. It kind of reminds me of the little I'm on a need-to-know basis little interlude on the Twin Fantasy remake, which is just Andrew singing this like kind of kooky little ditty at the end of the song Bodies, and it just kind of reminded me of that. Not so much entertaining for me, but I didn't mind it. It didn't detract from the song for me because it's just there at the end. But I'm surprised I didn't mention at the beginning of this song there's this synth that has some kind of envelope on it, and it is so annoying. I hate the synth at the start of this song, and
yeah,
like Cam mentioned, the intro is so long. It takes so long to get to the beginning of this song.
Similar to Weightlifters.
Yeah, and then when you get to the song here, I find very little of value as opposed to Weightlifters, where when the song does kick off, I think it is kind of decent. But here, yeah, this is not even the worst song on the album for me, but I really dislike it.
Cool.
Then we have What's With You Lately, which, yeah, this is a weird one. Ethan sings on this song, and it's just kind of a little, I don't want to call it a demo, but I don't know, it kind of is. It kind of sounds like, for some reason in my mind I was imagining Ethan going up to Will and saying, "Hey Will, I wrote a song, can I have it on the album please?" And Will was like, "Well, let's hear it." And given the decision making with some of the other songs on this album, I'm not surprised he put it on the album, but there's just not much to this song, really.
Yeah. On the Bandcamp page for the album, he did say this is like an album which were fragments of songs that were built upon to make songs. This still feels like a fragment or a vague idea.
Yeah.
I don't know how much this could have been developed further. Maybe they should have had like another verse and chorus. The main problem with it is obviously it doesn't fit the rest of the album. It's just a bit more inconsequential more than anything else. However, it's kind of nice. I mean, Ethan's got some sweet vocals. I'd be interested to hear maybe some solo work from him, if any exists. I don't think it does really. But, you know, if he did his own thing and branched out some more ideas than this, I could get into it. Yeah, but it's kind of inconsequential as far as the album track list goes. I mean, it's just there. It's kind of nice, but then it's over before you know it.
Yeah, it breaks up the album even more than it already was. Like, it breaks up the track list, I mean. And yeah, it sounds so underdeveloped. It sounds so off the cuff. I mean, it's not terrible. It's not bad, but like, it also doesn't really add anything to the album at all, I don't think. And for me, that is a major problem. So
if it was removed from the album, it would not matter, really.
Yeah, it really wouldn't.
If this had been included on, you know, a more conceptual album, how limited it is might have had a bigger impact. You know, limited in scope and length and everything like that.
Yeah.
Because it is, like, just reading the lyrics on paper, it's kind of, like, interesting and, like, kind of foreboding somehow.
Yeah.
But, like, yeah, it doesn't really seem to have a place on this album.
And it's weird that it sounds the most like Car Seat Headrest of like lo-fi indie early 2010s days, when it's Ethan singing rather than Will. That's maybe just the song that sounds closest to that, but it probably doesn't matter anyway.
And yet, despite that, it somehow manages to not fit on a Car Seat Headrest album.
That's true, yeah.
It's weird.
It goes to show how much, you know, Will has changed the band, or what Car Seat Headrest even means.
Cam put it really well, I think, where if this was on a more conceptual, narrative-driven album, maybe it could have been a really good interlude between other songs, but on here it's just nothing, really. It doesn't really add anything.
Yeah.
Moving on from there, we have the song Life Worth Missing. This song is great. This is my favourite song on the album, easily, and this is the only song, apart from maybe bits of the track after this one, where the lyrics fully resonated with me, and I totally got what Will was trying to do from listen one. This song is kind of like a reflection on his career and a reflection on how his band has changed over the years, all the criticism, all the backlash and whatnot, and just reflecting on his life in a way, because those older albums are so personal that they kind of, not to play into what I was saying before about these weird cults of personality that feel like they know Will, but they're so personal that they do feel like a huge part of his identity, more so than albums by another band would to their band members, I think. But I also really like the tune here. I really like the synths on this song. They sound really nice. Yeah, it's not an especially memorable one in terms of melodies or a chorus or anything. I can't even remember if this song does have a chorus, but yeah, I like this one. I think lyrically it's definitely the best moment on the album, the soul moment on the album, where the lyrics are up to the standard of Car Seat Headrest's previous material, I think.
It does feel thematically the most similar to like the personal yet kind of anthemic and powerful way he would write on older Car Seat Headrest songs.
Yeah, I think this is the only song that really adds something new to the Car Seat Headrest narrative and doesn't just completely fall flat on its face or come across as really surface level and just not all that interesting.
Yeah, the way the synths come in when he starts singing is one of the best moments on the album. It's thunderous. It's just really exciting and exhilarating. I was saying earlier, the synth work on here is really hit or miss. You either get ear-piercingly annoying intros to songs, or you get really excellent use of it, like on here. I don't think it means as much to me lyrically, because I haven't had the same association of fandom, or just... in general, I don't think lyrics resonate with me as much in general. I don't know why. I've listened to this song a lot, but for some reason, it's more musically than lyrically that I like it, which I guess is still fair. It's still one of the musically stronger songs on the album, right?
Definitely. Just the way everything comes together. This is probably the only song on the album where I can say this. Just the way all aspects of it come together really works for me.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not my favourite song on the album, actually. The next track is also very good, definitely a highlight. But on the next track, which, we'll talk about more in a minute, I think the lyrics fall flat compared to this one, so not everything comes together super well there. The coda towards the end, the suddenly started to shake part, it's just so cathartic that it's got the catharsis that you hear a lot on Car Seat Headrest music. It really works here. Great lyrics. I love when he says, "I feel it break, I feel the weight of anger, pain and sorrow breaking over me. The flags are raised. We walk with no goodbyes and no tomorrows. This is destiny." Just great lyrics. And if you have a knowledge of Car Seat Headrest's canon so far, it really does add a lot and really explains why he's felt this need to change the way he writes songs. It's nowhere near as good a song, but I don't know if you guys have heard the song Small Red Boy by AJJ from the album The Bible 2. That's a band that really significantly changed their sound, and that song is kind of about why the singer of that band, Sean Burnett, felt compelled to do so. It's very similar to that and similarly cathartic to me. I just really like it. I do wish there was more variety to the instrumental here, but that's really my only complaint.
I kind of have to side with Alex on this one, mostly because the way this one is produced, mixed, mastered, I'm not good with those terms, definitely buries the vocals under everything else, so I couldn't really make out the lyrics as much as anywhere else on the album.
Yeah.
Like, maybe, reading along with them as the song is playing would change my perception of it, but for now, like, this one does feel like just, a great indie rock song, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like a very distinct great indie rock song,
Yeah, I kind of get what you mean there.
Yeah, like, I wouldn't have an idea of who it was by, necessarily. Not to say that it's as bad as, modern car commercial indie. I mean, I'm not saying it's bad at all, but, I don't know, it just feels like, yes, this is another song that could enter into the, capital G great indie rock canon.
Nice.
I guess. It shouldn't feel like I'm saying that it's a bad thing, but for some reason it does. It's a good song. That's the last word on it.
So yeah, definitely a big highlight for me, I guess for all of us. So if you're a Car Seat Headrest fan and you've just completely fallen off with them, I'd say check out this song. Because don't get me wrong, a lot of fans did fall off when they became a full band, because I guess they just have such an attachment to the lo-fi stuff that the prospect of going a little less lo-fi is just a big no-no for some people. Even though I think Will's songwriting kind of only got more refined with albums like Teens of Denial. But regardless, it's a good track, man. I really like it. And then we have the song There Must Be More Than Blood, which was also a single. It's the longest song here. Car Seat Headrest are kind of known for their longer songs, so I was really excited for this one. And yeah, it's a good song, I'd say. I mentioned earlier that this one kind of feels similar to a song from the EP/album, whatever you want to call it, How to Leave Town. The song The Ending of Dramamine, which is like a 12 or 15 minute long song, I think, so it's nowhere near as long as that song. But it does feel like a brighter, happier, more hopeful kind of reiteration of that track. The synths on it are very, very similar, and the pace of the song is very, very similar. And Andrew Katz, who, mixed and produced a great deal of this album, has gone on record saying that he thinks the song The Ending of Dramamine is the greatest thing ever.
Nice.
I wouldn't be surprised if that they went into this being like, okay, let's try and reiterate some of the ideas from that song. Where it really pales in comparison is lyrically. I don't think the lyrics on here are bad. I just think they're kind of insubstantial. Again, not doing much thematically. But definitely decent lyrics. It's a good vibe overall. I like the songwriting here. I like the progression of the song. Doesn't get boring despite being the longest song here. And really the only major problem I have with it is how it just doesn't fit on the album at all to me. I think the terrible sequencing doesn't do this song favors, but in isolation, definitely a good song. Very good
We've
song.
said that songs don't fit the album so much. What even is the album at this point?
Well, I guess you're right. But you'd think having such a varied, set of tracks would give the album a very unique identity in that way, but it's an identity that I don't really care for.
What did you think of this one, Cam?
I don't know, it didn't really stand out to me when I was listening to it. I don't know, maybe partly because of the length, but yeah, I mean, it's not quite as satisfying as the wall of sound of Life Worth Missing. It didn't have the emotional resonance of the lyrics of Weightlifters for me. Maybe digging more into it could help with that. Definitely not a bad song by any means. And I wouldn't argue with somebody who says that it's their favorite. I wish I had more to say about this one.
I think it's got a good chorus as well. I forgot to say.
I think it's got the most flat-out memorable chorus.
Yeah, you're probably right there. Maybe competing with Hostiles, possibly.
Or Can't Cool Me Down, I guess. But
yeah.
but this feels like the most fully fleshed out, formed chorus. It's definitely they spent some time on this one for sure. I actually really like the electric guitar use in the intro. This is one of the songs that has a minute long plus intro, but it actually is really cool. I don't know if Ethan was improvising it, but the guitar tone is really cool and it leads it into the song in a unexpectedly rock-like fashion. I did not expect that at all, especially with how indie-tronica the album has been so far.
It sounds like a really unconventional solo that in a way is kind of amelodic, but that really works to its benefit. It gives it a lot of unique atmosphere, I think. It's a really cool way to open the track.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was from something else, Ethan was just jamming out one day and then let's just put it on the front of this, and then somehow it worked really well. That wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, I mean, this song, I think it's really good. The scope of the song feels quite large, even though it's not that long compared to some other ones like Beach Life and Death. That is a mini masterpiece in and of itself, I'd say.
Yeah, not to use the cringe word, but that is an epic song if I've ever heard one.
Yeah. I mean, lyrically, it's like someone who doesn't fit in with his family or original circumstances and starts to question it. Kind of standard lyrics, pretty good, but definitely not got the personal depth of some other lyrics from him, I'd say. But overall, it's just a really strong song. And I'd say Life Worth Missing and this. I mean, it's 12 really good minutes on an album that isn't that great. I mean, I'll take what I can get. And we can all agree this would have been a better ending to the album than what is the last song.
Yeah, we'll get onto that in a minute, but yeah, even though this makes up a good amount of the track list in terms of the length of the song, it is kind of doing the same thing for the whole song. So even though it means I'm happy listening to the album for a little bit, it's also not contributing much to my enjoyment of the album overall. And again, how jarring this sounds in the context of everything, even though we said a lot of it sounds jarring in the context to the point where is there even a context? Yeah, it just detracts from it overall. And I don't think the lyrics are amazing or anything, but yeah, the pre-chorus, the chorus are pretty damn good. The bass playing at the end of this track is the only time on the entire album where I noticed the bass playing and thought, this is really good.
Yeah, poor Seth.
Disappointing for Seth there. Yeah. Because he's a good bass player, man. His contributions to the Twin Fantasy remake I thought were excellent throughout, so it's really sad to hear the bass kind of fall into the background on this album. I guess because a lot of the lower end of the mixes are focused on synth work most of the time, But yeah, it's a good song, man. It really should have been the closer, although if it was, I don't know what kind of note it would be ending the album on thematically, given that...
I mean, it would be ending it on the must be more post-chorus coda at the end. I mean, that'd be okay.
I suppose so.
Better than what we got.
I guess it peters out a little bit, so, I don't know if it would have been the best closer, but yeah, it would have been better than Famous, which I'd say is the worst song on the album, honestly. It's really disappointing to me that the last song is the worst song to me, because I don't really have a whole lot to say about this one. It's especially shocking that it's the weakest track to me, given that, much like Weightlifters, it's a sharp contrast to the successes of their past material, where I found that Will really has a knack for writing excellent opening and closing tracks. Like I mentioned some songs earlier from Twin Fantasy and Teens of Denial, both those albums have great closers as well. The closer here is kind of just this weird little coda, very amelodic, very unmemorable. Like, every time I listen to this song, I just forget what it even sounds like as soon as I've heard it, which is probably why I can't think of much to say about it. Lyrically, very, very lacking. It feels like a bunch of notes that were written down in about 5 seconds. And I just don't know, man. There's not much to say. I read the Genius page for this because I wanted to see if there was anything I could grasp from it, and Will did say that he felt it made sense for the album to end with a song that feels unresolved, like there's something missing. But to me, this song feels unresolved, like there's something missing, and to me that's a really bad thing for the album. Yeah, awful song, honestly. Like, the synth sounds on here, just so garish to listen to me.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying, like, the synth work, I don't get how it's so, great on some songs and so badly mixed or badly played on some others, like this one. I don't understand how anybody can think, like, disconnected, like, chipmunk vocal distortion, like on here, is a good thing.
Yeah, the pitch shifted up in a really obnoxious way.
Yeah, I'm not here for this. Like, if I'm listening to the album, most likely I'll end it after There Must Be More Than Blood. I'm not listening to this. Just no thanks.
It's worth noting as well that even though they've made a big transition into sort of EDM and Indie-tronica influenced stuff here, it's not like Car Seat Headrest hasn't done very synth-heavy stuff in the past. The album Monomania has a lot of synth work, and especially the album How to Leave Town, I think, has amazing synth work on it. Like, so I don't know how they went from that to this. I'm sorry to keep comparing this to their older work, but there's definitely moments where I can see them as a frame of reference for the problems I have with this album. But like I stressed at the beginning of the review, like, I'm glad they tried to do something different this time around. I just think it really falters in how they did things differently. And this song is the biggest testament to that, because it just has nothing of merit at all to me.
No.
Like, what is it trying to do?
I don't even understand why it's called Famous, really, but...
I mean, I think overall the album, when it does have themes shine through, their themes of Will reflecting on himself now that he's a much more well-known,
I suppose,
broken out artist who is perceived by the world as a celebrity, I suppose. And maybe that's why a song like Hollywood cropped up on here, where he's kind of criticizing that lifestyle. But I don't know, it just doesn't work. He could have written a way better album about these topics, and he just didn't, to me.
Yeah, to end my thoughts on this, which aren't very vast, I don't understand how people can make a song like this and listen to it and think, yeah, that's a good end. Yep, I'm happy with this. I just don't understand that.
It sucks. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, pretty shit.
In my notes for the song, I just wrote, this song fucking sucks.
And do you remember what I said? I wrote just, what a shit song. I mean, do you concur, Cam, or?
I want Cam to say, I love this song. This is the best song on the album.
Yeah.
If only for the contrast. That'd be really funny.
Well, I mean, let me find my way into the middle of a cornfield so you guys can't hunt me down so easily. I kind of like this one more than There Must Be More Than Blood.
Okay.
Well, Explain that.
Yeah, I don't know. Just there must be more than blood to me. Just like didn't evolve at all, and it was just so long and so slow. Like it's not the worst pain of a song I've ever had to sit through. I won't even say it's painful. It's like you could say it went in one ear and out the other, but it wasn't fast enough to go there. It's like it just like worked its way into one and then just kind of started spiraling out. And then 7 minutes later, it's done. This one actually, Famous actually has, like energy and a pulse, and it's relatively short. And like, I guess if I ever actually do start making bedroom indie synth music, then I'm not going to share it with you guys because you guys would probably hate the sounds that I would use because I really liked the way this one sounded.
I mean, would you...
Even with the chipmunk vocals and like chipmunk vocals and random pitch shifted vocals, I've established as like one of the things I hate the most in music these days. But I didn't mind this song.
I didn't expect you to even like this one because you didn't like Him remix.
Well, that's because that one had that like overly mechanical quality to the way the vocals were processed.
Yeah. Definitely, this one sounds more natural.
It's
I'll definitely say that about it.
Yeah. It's like Him remix had like the kind of quality where like if you're splicing audio together and it's like you got two parts that aren't even remotely compatible, they just like clash and you can like feel it. That's what that song sounded like to me. This one just sounded like a bunch of like oddball kind of sounds, but they all work together really well and it wasn't edited weird.
That's completely fair enough.
Power to
I'm just
you,
curious,
but...
can I just ask, like, for There Must Be More Than Blood, which it actually only just occurred to me that song title might be a There Will Be Blood reference, a kind of cheeky rewrite of that title. I really like that. I can't believe I only just realised that. But that's not what I was going to say.
Well,
anyway.
It says on Genius the title to that song came to Will in his sleep, so... Who knows?
Interesting. But yeah, Cam, with that song, do you mean in terms of the vibe of the song it doesn't really evolve? Because I feel like new ideas and instrumentation is being added pretty much throughout that whole track. And that's something I really liked about it.
I don't know, like, maybe it's just like the length kind of had me zoning out more and I wasn't paying as much attention as I should have been to the end. But like to me, the way it kind of starts with that steady, like, I don't know, industrial rock kind of sound of that, like, kind of like, I don't know what you would call it, like hammers on bricks or something. You know what that sound is, right?
Like the repeated synth chords? Like repeating the same chord over and over?
Do you mean before the guitar comes in?
Yeah, like it's like way early in the song. Okay. Just like whatever, like the folks at home will like be able to tell what I'm talking about. But like to me, that just like as I'm thinking of that song, that's all I really remember. And I know that there's more that comes in, but just none of it really stood out above the repetitive drums and that kind of ding 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 ding. Like it's just like a train bell,
I get you. I'd be curious what you think of the ending of Dramamine then, because that song has the same like 5-second drum loop for about 15 minutes minus a few breaks, but that's actually one of the best things about that song to me because it somehow manages to build this amazing epic atmosphere around this really simple
really
drum loop.
Hypnotic and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like if I take the rest of the year off from reviewing anything else, I might be able to form some thoughts on Car Seat Headrest's back catalog, but
yeah, anyway, like I'm glad one of us enjoyed this song, Famous, but I hate it. I think it's the worst song Will Toledo's ever put on a record since his earliest material. I honestly can't believe that he thought ending the album this way would be a good idea, and along with a plethora of other issues, like that kind of sums up my thoughts on the whole album, really. So yeah, shall we go into concluding thoughts?
Yes,
please.
Alex?
Okay, this album's almost like if Car Seat Headrest were just another indie band, almost, like they weren't anything special. Couple of highlights, couple of stinkers. I will say the bass, guitar, drumming and singing is largely pretty good across the board, but the sequencing is really, really weird. The ideas are not all there in all the songs. overall, like, as a listening experience, this is a really weird one for me. However, the highlights are high enough, and, there's only maybe... well, I say only, there's three or four kind of bad songs on here, so I don't know how much credit I can really give this album, but I think I can give it maybe 5.5 out of 10. I feel like that's as high as I'm going to go for this one. It's definitely decent. I'll say that. It's a decent album. But is it much of an album, or is it a collection of songs that don't really fit together? I don't know. But yeah, that's my take on it.
And I guess now maybe new Car Seat Headrest fan of this new Car Seat Headrest sound, Cam. What do you reckon?
Biggest advocate of their new direction.
Oh boy, that's pathetic.
You're gonna get mobbed, my friend. You're gonna get kidnapped and beaten up by some of Car Seat Headrest's craziest fans, and I'm really sorry about that.
Hide in the cornfield.
Well, as long as they subscribe to the channel IDGAF.
Yeah, as long as they're giving us views, I mean, who cares?
Yep. Anyway, after that bit of shilling, that's been the trouble with the whole review. I just don't want to talk out of turn because obviously I don't fully understand what it is that people love about the band, or the solo act or the band itself. And I came into this totally blind. I came out of it thinking, yeah, I absolutely understand, just going from the concept of Will Toledo, in a bedroom indie singer-songwriter turned indie rock darling, I totally can see what people would hate about it. But if this album was by a band that I was already sort of kind of getting into, I would be okay with it. And so I don't think that it's not right for me to give him less credit just because it's not what fans of his would expect from him. And, if this serves as, get ready for this one, the gateway into me getting into, his previous albums and getting into anything he releases in the future, I think that's worthwhile enough for me to give this a, drumroll please, 7.
Nice. A nice callback to the gateway. What was that even from?
That was, Silence.
Oh, but Agvir, yeah. That's right.
Man,
nice.
Just to go on a tangent for a sec, definitely check out How to Leave Town, Cam, because I feel like a lot of the sounds and ideas on this album are present on that album too, and executed a lot better in my mind. I mean, maybe you'd disagree there, but that's an album that's easy to miss because for some reason it's listed as an EP, even though it's one of their longest projects. It's kind of like that All Delighted People EP that Sufjan Stevens did a while back, where it's longer than most artists' regular albums, and yet it's labeled as an EP. But... Yeah.
I was shocked when I went to the RYM page for Car Seat Headrest and saw just how many freaking albums there are, and because the only ones people talk about are Twin Fantasy, Teens of Denial. I've heard some people talk about Monomania here and there, and I knew he had released a bunch, or at least some stuff, before he got signed to Matador, but I didn't know just how much, and no websites can agree on how many things he released before getting signed and putting out albums on Matador. So that just throws everything up in the air. It's it's impossible to navigate.
That's true. I mean, yeah, people talk about Twin Fantasy and Teens of Denial pretty much exclusively because I feel like those are really the biggest milestones in his discography. Albums like Monomania are kind of just elaborating on Twin Fantasy more, because that was the album that followed up the original Twin Fantasy, and it's also kind of a sequel to it. So its identity is rooted in the album before it, so maybe that's why people don't talk about it so much.
I definitely need to check out Nervous Young Man.
Yeah, Nervous Young Man's an interesting one, because that's just a collection of songs that Will wrote over the course of years that weren't necessarily meant to be part of an album, but I think that album has super cohesive themes and a good progression to it, despite essentially doing the same thing that this album does in just having a bunch of individual tracks. Not to ramble on about things that aren't this album, but I'd rather do that than talk about this album, honestly, and I'd rather praise Car Seat Headrest work that I really do like, but that album has 20 tracks on it, and most of them are really goddamn good. It's one of the most consistent albums I've ever heard, so people
Nice.
rarely talk about that one. I just can't recommend it enough. I love Nervous Young Man almost as much as I love Twin Fantasy. I possibly like it more than Teens of Denial, honestly.
Wow.
Yeah, I feel like I'm explaining to Cam why those albums are seemingly the only ones that get talked about. Then there's Teens of Style. That's just a bunch of remakes as a full band of the older material. So I can sort of see why those are the only two that are talked about, if that makes any sense. But
I mean, I saw that like the big song or single from Teens of Style, Something Soon, is On My Back Is Killing Me Baby, so
yeah, that's an excellent song.
I can get that song from there. But yeah, anyway.
But yeah, as for Making a Door Less Open, I truly respect and appreciate what they were trying to do here, and I've only just thought of this. I have the perfect 3-word description of this album in terms of what I think of it. This album is Bad Kid A, basically.
Whoa.
This is rock band going electronic and just going completely out of their comfort zone and making a bunch of whacked out songs that are very dense. Not dense, but in terms of lyrical content, they're quite difficult to read into because there's not much to go on there. In the case of Radiohead, that works absolutely excellently. The kind of esotericness of the lyrics on that album inspires a lot of interesting thoughts and feelings in me. The lyrics on this album, and as I've said, I love Will Toledo's lyrics on his previous work. The fact that the lyrics on this album just really do so little for me is really disappointing. But so is the sequencing and the sound of the album, and the fact that the songs I like sound completely lost on the album. I really dislike this one. Like, I really wanted to like it. I really, really did. I can't stress it enough.
You really did. Like, you were hyping it to me for months, man. Like, I know how much you really liked it. Like, you were sending me all the singles, and largely, aside from Hollywood, you were digging them, so...
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I thought it was definitely their weakest run of singles. Like, I like Can't Cool Me Down a fair bit, but as a first single, I didn't think it was all that amazing or all that special. It had me a tiny bit worried, even though I like the song.
Yeah.
And then Martin, I had those big, huge problems with the structure of that song, even though I like how it sounds a lot. It's just an absolute mess of an album, and I feel like even though that was partially intentional, it doesn't work in its favor. I guess I've talked so much about this that I'll just hurry with my final thoughts. I'm all for an artist changing course, but when they steer so far in the opposite direction that they end up falling off a cliff, the car crash at least needs to be exciting and explosive. Here, it's like they fell off a cliff and the car didn't even explode. I appreciate that this is a huge change of pace for them, so it's unfair to expect this, but the unique aspects of Car Seat Headrest music that excite me so much with their previous material, the emotional resonance and just the quality songwriting, the catchiness, the use of simplicity, simplistic chord progressions and whatnot, somehow being able to build up these amazing monolithic songs. It's all completely absent on this album for the vast majority of the runtime, and it's just a big disappointment. I mean, Alex said I was hyping this one up, but I can't stress enough, I go into every album with no expectations at all because I know it's unfair to expect anything. When it's an artist like this that I love, obviously I am going to be excited, and that might affect my view of it. And on first listen, I really kind of hated this, and I thought, okay, I need to remove the context of the previous albums and see if I can enjoy this on its own merit. And I just don't enjoy it. This is easily the most disappointing album for me in a very, very, very long time, probably since Humans by Gorillaz. And yeah, I really hope that the guys continue experimenting by all means, but not like this.
Not like this.
Not like this. So yeah, 4 out of 10. There's definitely good songs here. there's songs worth keeping. Life Worth Missing, great inclusion in the Car Seat Headrest discography. There Must Be More Than Blood, that's a good song overall. And Can't Cool Me Down and Martin, I have problems with the structure on those songs, but they're both... Martin is decent, Can't Cool Me Down is pretty solid. But there's no songs on here I love. This is the first Car Seat Headrest album pretty much ever, unless you're counting, the early material I keep referring to that's not really substantial, that I don't love any songs on. And it's just really disappointing to me. I'm really glad Cam enjoyed it, because I'm glad this isn't just a total mope fest on our part, because that might not have been too fun to listen to. But yeah, disappointing, man. That's all I have to say, really.
And so, at long last, that concludes our thoughts on Making a Door Less Open by Car Seat Headrest. Thanks for tuning in to Busted Speakers, everybody. You can follow us on Twitter at _Busted Speakers. You can follow me on Twitter at SubProspector. You can subscribe if you want to see more of our album reviews. And we will see you all next time. Bye.
See ya.
Be safe out there, guys.